The crystal chandeliers trembled as Lauren's voice cut through the dining room like a knife. "You've never wanted me in this family, Evelyn. Just admit it." Her green eyes blazed with fury, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of the mahogany table. Evelyn Mason, 78 years old but with a spine of steel, rose slowly from her seat, her silver hair catching the candlelight. "Wanted you? My dear girl, you're not here for Jackson. You're here for his bank account." The 20 guests seated around the table fell silent, their forks frozen mid-air. Jackson stood between them, his jaw clenched, his 6-foot frame seeming somehow smaller in that moment. And then he did something no one expected. He walked to the sideboard, opened a drawer, and pulled out a manila envelope that had been hidden there for months. "Both of you need to hear this," he said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made everyone lean forward. "Because everything you think you know about this family is about to change. What happens next will shock you. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back 6 months, to a cold February morning when Jackson Mason first met Lauren Pierce at a charity gala in Manhattan. Jackson Mason wasn't born into wealth. His father, Richard Mason, had been a factory supervisor in Detroit who worked 70-hour weeks to keep food on the table. Jackson's biological mother, Caroline, died of pneumonia when he was only 7 years old. He remembered her in fragments, the smell of lavender in her hair, the way she hummed while folding laundry, the warmth of her hand holding his as they walked to the corner store. After Caroline's death, Richard fell apart. He drank heavily, stopped showing up to work, and withdrew into a shell of grief that Jackson couldn't penetrate. For 2 years, Jackson essentially raised himself. He learned to make scrambled eggs at 8, to forge his father's signature on permission slips at 9, to lie to social workers at 10. Then Evelyn appeared. Evelyn Hartford was a widow herself, a former opera singer whose husband had left her comfortable but not wealthy. She met Richard at a grief counseling group at the local church. Something about Richard's brokenness called to her maternal instincts, and something about young Jackson's fierce independence impressed her. Within 6 months, Evelyn and Richard were married. She moved into their small house in Detroit and immediately began restructuring their lives with military precision. Evelyn didn't replace Jackson's mother. She never tried. But she gave him something Caroline couldn't have: structure, discipline, and most importantly, education. She discovered that Jackson had a brilliant mind for mathematics and business. She tutored him personally, pushed him to enter academic competitions, and when he won a scholarship to MIT at 17, she sold her late husband's vintage car collection to pay for his living expenses. Richard died of liver failure during Jackson's sophomore year. Jackson came home for the funeral and found Evelyn sitting alone in the kitchen at 3 in the morning, crying silently. It was the only time he'd ever seen her cry. "He was a good man before the grief took him," she whispered. "Remember him that way." Jackson graduated top of his class, went to Stanford for his MBA, and by 32 had built a tech consulting firm that was worth $47 million. He bought Evelyn the estate in Connecticut, a sprawling 12-bedroom mansion with gardens and a view of Long Island Sound. She protested at first, called it excessive, but he insisted. "You gave me everything," he told her. "This is nothing." But Jackson was lonely. His world was filled with board meetings, investor calls, and business trips to Singapore and Frankfurt. He dated occasionally, but nothing stuck. The women he met seemed more interested in his portfolio than his personality. He began to wonder if genuine connection was even possible at his level of wealth. Then came that February gala. It was a fundraiser for pediatric cancer research, held at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. Jackson attended out of obligation, his checkbook ready, his expectations low. He was standing near the bar, nursing a scotch, when he noticed her. Lauren Pierce was arguing with the event coordinator, her voice controlled but firm. "I specifically arranged for table 7 to be reserved for the Hendersons. Mrs. Henderson is in a wheelchair and needs accessibility. The coordinator, a thin man with a clipboard, looked annoyed. Ma'am, I don't have that in my notes. Lauren pulled out her phone, showed him an email chain. Then your notes are wrong. Fix it. Now. The coordinator huffed and walked away. Lauren smoothed her navy blue dress and turned, nearly colliding with Jackson. Sorry, she said, meeting his eyes. I just hate incompetence. Jackson smiled. You handled that well. She studied him for a moment, seeming to calculate something. Lauren Pierce. I'm one of the event planners tonight. Jackson Mason. He extended his hand. Her grip was firm and warm. I know who you are, Mr. Mason. Your donation last year paid for 3 full clinical trials. Just Jackson. And you're very informed. It's my job to be informed. She glanced across the room where the coordinator was now frantically rearranging tables. And to make sure things run smoothly, even when people try to sabotage them. They talked for 20 minutes. Lauren told him she'd started her event planning company 5 years ago, after leaving a corporate job that had nearly destroyed her mental health. She was 30 years old, originally from Ohio, and had moved to New York with $700 and a dream. She'd built her business from the ground up, working 18-hour days, sleeping on a friend's couch for the first year. Now she had 12 employees and clients across 3 states. Jackson was captivated. Not just by her beauty, though she was striking with her auburn hair and intelligent green eyes, but by her drive. She reminded him of himself at 25, hungry and determined. Would you have dinner with me sometime? He asked as the event was winding down. Lauren hesitated. I don't usually date clients. I'm not hiring you. I'm asking you out. She smiled then, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Okay. But you're paying. I know how much you donated tonight. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. Jackson arrived in jeans and a sweater, deliberately casual. Lauren wore a simple black dress and flats. They talked for 3 hours, the conversation flowing easily. She told him about her childhood in Dayton, how her father had abandoned the family when she was 12, leaving her mother to raise 3 kids on a teacher's salary. Lauren, the eldest, had taken on a maternal role, helping with homework, cooking dinners, working part-time jobs to contribute to the household. I learned early that if you want something, you have to fight for it, she said, twirling pasta on her fork. No one's going to hand you anything. Jackson told her about his own childhood, about losing his mother, about Evelyn's transformation of his life. She's incredible, he said. Tough as nails but fair. She taught me that discipline and love aren't mutually exclusive. She sounds formidable, Lauren said. She is. You'll meet her eventually. Is that a promise? Lauren asked, her eyes teasing. It's a guarantee. Over the next 3 months, they fell into a rhythm. Jackson would fly back from business trips and go straight to Lauren's apartment in Brooklyn. She'd cook dinner, usually something simple like roasted chicken and vegetables, and they'd watch old movies on her couch. He loved the normalcy of it, the way she never asked him for anything, never treated him differently because of his wealth. When he offered to take her to Paris for a weekend, she declined. I have 3 events that weekend, she said. My clients depend on me. He respected that. It was one of the many things he loved about her. In May, he proposed. They were at her favorite spot, a quiet bench in Central Park overlooking the pond. He didn't hire a flash mob or rent out a restaurant. He simply pulled out the ring, a 2-carat diamond in a platinum setting, and asked, "Will you marry me?" Lauren's eyes filled with tears. Are you serious? I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Yes. God, yes. They kissed as joggers passed by and tourists took photos of the skyline. Jackson called Evelyn that evening to share the news. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You're engaged," Evelyn said slowly. "After 4 months." "When you know," Jackson said, hearing the defensiveness in his own voice. "I'm sure she's lovely. I look forward to meeting her." "You'll love her, Evelyn. She's smart, hardworking, independent." "I'm sure," Evelyn repeated. But something in her tone made Jackson uneasy. 2 weeks later, Jackson brought Lauren to Connecticut to meet Evelyn properly. It was a Saturday afternoon in late May, the gardens in full bloom, roses and peonies creating explosions of color against the green lawns. Evelyn was waiting on the front steps of the estate, dressed in a cream-colored suit, her silver hair swept back in an elegant chignon. "Jackson, darling," she said, embracing him. Then she turned to Lauren, extending a hand. "You must be Lauren. Welcome." "Thank you, Mrs. Mason. Your home is breathtaking." "Please, call me Evelyn." "Mrs. Mason was my mother-in-law, and we didn't get along." Evelyn smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. They had lunch on the terrace overlooking the Sound. Evelyn's housekeeper, Margaret, a cheerful woman in her 50s who'd worked for the family for a decade, served a beautiful spread, cold poached salmon, arugula salad, fresh bread, and lemon tart for dessert. The conversation was polite but strained. Evelyn asked Lauren about her business, her family, her education. Lauren answered each question with grace, but Jackson could see the tension in her shoulders. "Your mother was a teacher?" Evelyn asked, sipping her iced tea. "Yes, high school English. She's retired now." "And your father?" "He left when I was young. I don't have contact with him." Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. "That must have been difficult." "It was. But it taught me resilience." "Resilience is important," Evelyn agreed. "Though I've always believed that family stability is the foundation of a successful life." Jackson felt his jaw tighten. "Evelyn, not everyone has that luxury." "Of course not, darling. I'm simply making an observation." Lauren set down her fork carefully. "I think people create their own stability, regardless of their circumstances." Evelyn smiled. "How very American of you." The rest of the lunch passed in polite silence. As they were leaving, Evelyn pulled Jackson aside while Lauren was using the restroom. "She's not right for you," Evelyn said quietly. "Excuse me?" "She's charming, I'll give her that. But Jackson, you barely know her. 4 months is nothing." "It's enough for me." "Is it? Or are you simply tired of being alone?" Jackson felt anger rising in his chest. "This isn't like you, Evelyn. You've always supported my decisions. And I'm supporting you now by being honest. She's after your money, Jackson. I can see it. You don't know her. I know her type. Ambitious, independent, self-made. All very admirable traits. But darling, people like that don't stop being ambitious. They always want more. That's not fair." Evelyn placed a hand on his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "I've been poor, Jackson. I know what poverty does to a person's soul. It creates a hunger that never goes away. You can't satisfy it with love alone." Jackson pulled away. "I'm marrying her, Evelyn. With or without your blessing." Evelyn's face hardened. "Then I hope you know what you're doing." When they drove away from the estate, Lauren was quiet. "She hates me," she finally said. "She doesn't hate you. She's just protective. She thinks I'm a gold digger." Jackson didn't deny it. "She'll come around. Give her time." But Evelyn didn't come around. Over the next few months, as Jackson and Lauren planned their wedding, Evelyn remained coldly polite. She attended the engagement party but left early, claiming a headache. She declined to help with wedding planning, citing her age and fatigue. When Jackson asked her to give a toast at the rehearsal dinner, she agreed but wrote something so formal and impersonal that it sounded like a corporate speech. Lauren, to her credit, tried. She invited Evelyn to lunch multiple times. She sent thoughtful gifts, a first-edition book of opera scores, a silk scarf from Paris. She never complained to Jackson about Evelyn's coldness, though he could see it hurt her. "Why does she hate me so much?" Lauren asked one night as they lay in bed in Jackson's penthouse apartment in Manhattan. "She doesn't hate you. Then what is it?" Jackson stared at the ceiling. "I think she's afraid of losing me." "You're not going anywhere. You're her son. Stepson. And she's always been terrified that I'd leave, that I'd forget what she did for me." Lauren rolled over to face him. "That's ridiculous. You worship her. I love her. But she doesn't believe love is permanent. Her first husband died. My father drank himself to death. She's seen too much loss. So she pushes away anyone who might take you from her." "Something like that." Lauren sighed. "What are we going to do? We're going to get married, and we're going to be happy, and eventually she'll see that you're not a threat." But even as Jackson said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. The breaking point came in October, 2 weeks before the wedding. Jackson had organized a weekend gathering at the Connecticut estate, a pre-wedding celebration with close friends and family. 20 people were invited, Lauren's mother and 2 younger siblings, Jackson's college roommate Derek and his wife, several of Jackson's business associates, and a handful of Lauren's closest friends from New York. Evelyn had reluctantly agreed to host, though she'd made Margaret do most of the preparation. They arrived on Friday evening. The estate looked magnificent, the autumn leaves creating a tapestry of reds and golds around the property. Margaret greeted everyone warmly, showing them to their rooms. Jackson and Lauren were given the master suite in the East Wing, a sprawling space with a king-sized bed, a fireplace, and French doors that opened onto a private balcony. "This is incredible," Lauren breathed, stepping onto the balcony. The sun was setting over the Sound, painting the water in shades of orange and pink. Jackson wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Happy?" "Very." She turned to kiss him. "Thank you for this. Thank you for agreeing to marry me." Dinner that night was formal. Evelyn had arranged for a catered meal, butternut squash soup, filet mignon, roasted vegetables, and a chocolate mousse for dessert. Everyone was seated at the long mahogany table in the dining room, the crystal chandeliers glittering overhead. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, Jackson to her right, Lauren to her left. "A toast," Jackson's friend Derek said, standing with his wine glass raised. "To Jackson and Lauren. May your love be as strong as Jackson's Wi-Fi password and may your fights be as short as his attention span in meetings." Everyone laughed. Lauren squeezed Jackson's hand under the table. The dinner conversation flowed easily at first. Lauren's mother, Patricia, a warm woman in her late 50s with graying hair and kind eyes, told stories about Lauren's childhood. "She was always so determined," Patricia said. "When she was 10, she decided she wanted to learn piano. We couldn't afford lessons, so she taught herself using library books and YouTube videos. Within a year, she was playing Chopin." "How resourceful," Evelyn said, her tone neutral. "Resourcefulness is an excellent quality in a wife," Derek's wife, Amanda, chimed in. "Jackson needs someone who can handle his crazy schedule." "Indeed," Evelyn said. She took a sip of her wine. "Though I've always believed that a strong marriage requires more than resourcefulness. It requires shared values, shared history, shared understanding." The table grew quiet. Jackson felt Lauren tense beside him. "Evelyn," he said carefully. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm simply making conversation, darling." "It doesn't sound like conversation. It sounds like a judgment." Evelyn set down her wine glass. "If you're asking whether I think 4 months is enough time to truly know someone before committing to a lifetime together, then yes, I suppose I am making a judgment." Lauren's voice was calm but firm. "Mrs. Mason, I understand your concern. But Jackson and I may have only known each other for a short time chronologically, but we've spent that time really getting to know each other. We've talked about everything, our pasts, our goals, our fears, our dreams." "How lovely," Evelyn said. "And what are your goals, Lauren?" "Long term, I mean. I want to grow my business, eventually franchise it. I want to make a difference in the event planning industry, prove that you can be successful and ethical. And Jackson's money has nothing to do with these ambitions?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. Patricia gasped. Derek's eyes widened. Amanda grabbed her husband's arm. Jackson pushed back from the table. "Evelyn, that's enough." But Lauren held up a hand. "No, Jackson. Let her say what she needs to say." She turned to Evelyn, her green eyes blazing. "You think I'm after Jackson's money? You've thought that from the moment we met. But here's what you don't understand, I was successful before I met Jackson. I built my business with my own hands, my own sweat, my own tears. I don't need his money. I want his love, his partnership, his respect. That's all I've ever wanted." Evelyn smiled thinly. "My dear girl, everyone needs money. And everyone wants more of it. That's human nature." "Maybe that's your nature," Lauren shot back. "But it's not mine. Isn't it? Tell me, Lauren, when you saw Jackson at that gala, did you know who he was?" Lauren hesitated for just a fraction of a second. It was enough. "I thought so," Evelyn continued. "You knew exactly who he was and what he was worth. You saw an opportunity. I saw a good man." Lauren's voice rose. "I saw someone who'd worked hard for what he had, someone who treated people with respect, someone who understood what it meant to struggle. Yes, I knew who he was. But that's not why I fell in love with him." "Love," Evelyn repeated, as if tasting the word. "Such a convenient emotion. It justifies so much, doesn't it?" Jackson stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Everybody out," he said quietly. "What?" Derek looked confused. "I said everybody out. Except you two." He gestured to Lauren and Evelyn. "We're settling this now." Patricia stood hesitantly. "Jackson, maybe we should all just calm down and—" "Please, Patricia. I'm sorry. But I need to handle this." The guests filed out slowly, casting worried glances back at the table. Margaret appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Should I clear the dishes?" "Not yet, Margaret. Thank you." When they were alone, Jackson walked to the sideboard and poured himself a scotch. His hands were shaking. "Do you know what kills me about this?" he said, his back to them. "It's that you're both right." He turned to face them. "Evelyn, you're right that I don't know Lauren as well as I probably should before getting married. 4 months is fast. Maybe too fast. And Lauren, you're right that Evelyn is being unfair, judging you based on assumptions rather than evidence." "Jackson," Lauren began. "Let me finish." He took a long drink. "But here's what neither of you understands. I'm not a child. I'm 32 years old. I've built a company from nothing. I've negotiated deals worth millions of dollars. I've traveled to 40 countries. I think I'm capable of making my own decisions about who I want to spend my life with. Of course you are, Evelyn said. Then why are you treating me like I'm 7 years old again, like I need you to protect me from the world? Evelyn's face softened slightly. Because you did need me once, Jackson. And old habits die hard. I love you, Evelyn. You saved my life. But you can't control it. I'm not trying to control it. I'm trying to save you from making a terrible mistake. Lauren stood suddenly, her napkin falling to the floor. I'm the mistake, apparently. Her voice was thick with emotion. No, Lauren, wait, Jackson said. What's the point, Jackson? She's made it clear what she thinks of me. And honestly, I'm tired of defending myself. I'm tired of proving that I'm not some scheming gold digger. I'm just tired. Tears were streaming down her face now. Maybe she's right. Maybe this is moving too fast. Maybe we don't know each other well enough. Maybe. Don't, Jackson said firmly. Don't let her doubt become your doubt. But what if she has a point? What if we're making a mistake? Then it's our mistake to make, Jackson said. He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. Lauren, I love you. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. If you want to postpone the wedding, if you want more time, I'll give it to you. But don't walk away because of someone else's fear. Lauren looked at him for a long moment, then at Evelyn, who was sitting very still at the head of the table, her face unreadable. I need some air, Lauren said finally. She pulled her hands free and walked out of the dining room. Jackson heard the front door open and close. He turned to Evelyn. Are you happy now? Happy? Jackson, I'm trying to protect you. From what? From being loved? From being happy? From being hurt, Evelyn said, her voice cracking slightly. From being used and discarded when you're no longer useful. Is that what happened to you? Jackson asked quietly. Is that what your first husband did? Evelyn's face went pale. Don't. No, I think we need to talk about this. You never talk about him. You never talk about that part of your life. But I think it's the key to all of this. My past is irrelevant. It's completely relevant. You're projecting your pain onto my relationship. Evelyn stood slowly, her hands gripping the edge of the table. You want to know about my first husband? Fine. His name was Charles Hartford. He was a banker, charming, sophisticated, everything I thought I wanted. We married when I was 22. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. She paused, her eyes distant. Then I discovered he'd been embezzling from his firm. Millions of dollars. He'd been living a double life, mistresses, gambling debts, criminal associates. The police arrested him at our home at 3 in the morning. I was left with nothing. Worse than nothing. I was associated with his crimes. Jackson had never heard this story. Evelyn, I didn't know. Of course you didn't. It's not something I talk about. But yes, Jackson, I learned the hard way that people are capable of extraordinary deception, especially when money is involved. So yes, I'm cautious. Yes, I question motives. And yes, I worry that you're repeating my mistakes. Lauren isn't Charles. How do you know? You've known her for 4 months. Because I know her heart. I know her character. And I know that she's nothing like the man who hurt you. Evelyn sank back into her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 78 years. I hope you're right, Jackson. I truly do. Because if you're wrong, it will destroy you. And I don't think I could bear to see that happen. Jackson crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair. I understand why you're scared. But you have to trust me. You have to trust that the lessons you taught me, about judgment, about character, about integrity, you have to trust that those lessons took root. Evelyn touched his face gently. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Jackson Mason. You know that, don't you? And you saved my life. But now you have to let me live it. They sat there for a moment in silence. Then Jackson stood. I need to find Lauren. Go, Evelyn said quietly. And Jackson? If she truly makes you happy, I'll learn to accept it. Jackson found Lauren in the gardens, sitting on a stone bench near the rose bushes. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and she was crying softly. Hey, he said gently, sitting beside her. I'm sorry, she whispered. You have nothing to apologize for. I knew this would be hard. I knew she didn't like me. But I didn't expect her to be so cruel. She's not cruel. She's scared. Lauren looked at him. Of what? Of me? Of losing me? Of history repeating itself? He told her about Charles Hartford, about Evelyn's first marriage, about the betrayal that had shaped her entire worldview. As he spoke, Lauren's expression shifted from anger to understanding to pity. Oh my God, she said when he finished. I had no idea. She doesn't talk about it. Ever. I only found out by accident when I was in college. I overheard her on the phone with a lawyer about some old financial matter. That explains so much, Lauren said. But Jackson, I'm not Charles Hartford. I would never hurt you like that. I know. And deep down, Evelyn knows it too. She just needs time. Lauren leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you think we're moving too fast? Be honest. Jackson considered the question carefully. Honestly? Yes. By conventional standards, 4 months is fast. But I don't care about conventional standards. I care about what I feel when I'm with you. And what I feel is certainty. Is that crazy? Maybe a little, Lauren said with a small smile. But I feel it too. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the distant sound of waves against the shore. What do we do now? Lauren finally asked. We go back inside. We finish this weekend. We get married in 2 weeks. And we prove to Evelyn, through our actions, that we're the real thing. And if she never accepts me, then that's her loss. But I think she will. Eventually. They walked back to the house hand in hand. The lights were on in the guest rooms, and Jackson could see shadows moving behind curtains. Their guests were probably rehashing the dinner disaster, speculating about what would happen next. What would you do in this situation? Tell us in the comments below. Inside, they found Margaret in the kitchen, washing dishes. Are you two all right? She asked, her face creased with concern. We're fine, Margaret. Thank you, Jackson said. Mrs. Mason went to her room. She asked not to be disturbed. I'll talk to her tomorrow, Jackson said. He and Lauren went up to their room. They got ready for bed in silence, both exhausted from the emotional turmoil. As they lay in the darkness, Lauren spoke. Tell me about your mother. Your real mother. Jackson was surprised. Why? Because I want to understand who you are, where you come from. And I feel like she's a piece of the puzzle I'm missing. So Jackson told her. He told her about Caroline's laugh, about the songs she used to sing, about the way she made everything feel safe even when they had nothing. He told her about the day she died, about holding her hand in the hospital, about the way her breathing got slower and slower until it stopped. I think that's why Evelyn and I bonded so strongly, he said. We were both survivors of loss. We understood each other's pain. She's lucky to have you, Lauren said. We're lucky to have each other. But Lauren, you're part of that now. You're part of our family, whether she's ready to accept it or not. Lauren kissed him softly. I love you, Jackson Mason. I love you too. But neither of them slept well that night. The next morning was Saturday. Jackson woke early and went for a run around the property, trying to clear his head. When he returned, he found Derek waiting for him on the front steps. Hey man, Derek said. We need to talk. About last night? Yeah. Look, Amanda and I are thinking of heading back to the city early. Things are pretty tense here. Don't, Jackson said. Please. I need my friends around right now. Derek sighed. Okay. But Jackson, seriously, what are you going to do about this situation? You can't get married with this kind of tension between your fiancée and your stepmother. I'm working on it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're caught in the middle with no plan. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. What do you want me to do, Derek? Choose between them. I want you to set boundaries. Tell Evelyn that she's out of line. Tell Lauren that you've got her back, completely and unconditionally. I did that last night. Did you? Because it seemed like you were trying to play peacemaker, trying to make everyone happy. But Jackson, sometimes you can't make everyone happy. Sometimes you have to pick a side. Jackson knew Derek was right. But picking a side felt like betrayal, like choosing between the woman who'd saved him as a child and the woman he wanted to build a future with. The rest of the guests emerged for breakfast around 9. Margaret had prepared a spread in the sunroom, fresh fruit, pastries, coffee, and juice. Everyone was polite but subdued, carefully avoiding any mention of the previous evening. Evelyn appeared last, dressed impeccably in slacks and a silk blouse, her makeup perfect. Good morning, everyone, she said pleasantly, as if nothing had happened. I trust you all slept well. The fake normalcy was almost worse than the open conflict. Lauren pushed her food around her plate, barely eating. Jackson watched her, worried. Patricia, Lauren's mother, tried to start a conversation about the wedding flowers, but it fizzled quickly. The silence was oppressive. Finally, Jackson stood. I think we need to address what happened last night. Jackson, darling, is that really necessary? Evelyn asked. Yes, it is. Everyone here witnessed something ugly, and pretending it didn't happen isn't going to work. He looked around the table. I love Evelyn. She's my family, the person who raised me and made me who I am. But I also love Lauren, and I'm going to marry her. I need both of them to find a way to coexist peacefully. Amanda spoke up gently. Jackson, maybe the problem is that you're asking them to be something they're not ready to be. Maybe they need time apart, not forced proximity. We don't have time, Jackson said. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Then postpone it, Derek suggested. The room went silent. Lauren's head snapped up. What? Just hear me out, Derek continued. Give yourselves 6 more months. Let things cool down. Let Evelyn get used to the idea. Let you and Lauren build a stronger foundation. What's the rush? The rush is that we love each other and want to start our lives together, Lauren said, her voice tight. I understand that. But is it worth tearing the family apart? Lauren stood abruptly. I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just trying to exist in a space where apparently I'm not welcome. She looked at Jackson. Maybe Derek's right. Maybe we should postpone. Or maybe we should just elope and avoid this whole nightmare. Lauren, Patricia said softly. Sit down. Please. Lauren remained standing, her hands clenched at her sides. Why? So we can all pretend everything's fine. So Evelyn can make more veiled accusations about my character. No thank you. No one is accusing you of anything, Evelyn said calmly. Aren't you? Because last night you pretty much called me a gold digger in front of everyone here. Evelyn's eyes flashed. I expressed concern about the speed of your relationship. That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. You think I'm using Jackson for his money. Just admit it. Fine. Yes, I have concerns about your motivations. Is that what you want to hear? At least you're being honest now, Lauren shot back. Honest? My dear girl, I've been honest from the beginning. You're the one who's been playing a role. What role? The perfect girlfriend. The understanding partner. The woman who doesn't care about money. But I see through it, Lauren. I see the calculations behind those pretty eyes. Lauren's face went white. Jackson saw her hands trembling. You don't know anything about me, she whispered. I know enough. I know that you grew up poor, that your father abandoned you, that you've spent your entire life clawing your way up from nothing. And I know that people like you don't stop climbing. You'll climb right over Jackson if it means getting higher. The words hung in the air like poison. Patricia was crying now. Derek looked horrified. Amanda had her hand over her mouth. And Lauren looked like she'd been slapped. How dare you, Lauren said, her voice shaking. How dare you reduce my entire life, my entire struggle, to some kind of scheming ambition? Yes, I grew up poor. Yes, I worked hard. Yes, I wanted more than what I was given. But that doesn't make me a monster. It makes me human. It makes you dangerous, Evelyn replied. Because you'll never be satisfied. Jackson could give you everything, and it would never be enough. You're wrong. Am I? Tell me, Lauren, if Jackson lost everything tomorrow, if his company failed and he was bankrupt, would you still marry him? Of course I would. Prove it. The challenge hung between them. Jackson wanted to intervene, wanted to stop this before it went further, but something held him back. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe they needed to fight this out, get everything into the open. How? Lauren asked. How do I prove something like that? Evelyn smiled. Simple. Sign a prenuptial agreement. A real one, ironclad, that leaves you with nothing if the marriage ends. The room erupted. Patricia gasped. Derek shook his head. Amanda said, "Oh God." And Jackson finally found his voice. No. Absolutely not. Why not? Evelyn asked, still looking at Lauren. If she loves you for you, she shouldn't have a problem with it. It's not about that, Jackson said. It's about trust. It's about partnership. I'm not going to insult Lauren by asking her to sign away her rights. Then you're a fool, Evelyn said flatly. Lauren held up a hand. I'll do it. What? Jackson turned to her. I said I'll do it. I'll sign whatever prenup she wants. Lauren, no. You don't have to prove anything to her. But I do, Jackson. Don't you see? This will never end unless I prove her wrong. Lauren turned to Evelyn. Draft whatever agreement you want. Make it as harsh as you like. I'll sign it. Because I'm not marrying Jackson for his money. I'm marrying him because I love him. Evelyn looked surprised for the first time. You're serious? Completely. Can you guess what happens next? Drop your predictions below. All right then, Evelyn said slowly. I'll have my attorney draw something up on Monday. Fine. Lauren turned to Jackson. Is that okay with you? Jackson felt like he was being torn in two. On one hand, he admired Lauren's willingness to prove herself. On the other hand, the whole thing felt wrong, like he was allowing Evelyn to bully them into something they shouldn't have to do. If that's what you want, he said carefully. It's what I need to do. The rest of the weekend passed in cold politeness. The guests mostly kept to themselves, taking walks around the property or reading in the library. Jackson tried to talk to both Evelyn and Lauren separately, but neither seemed willing to budge from their positions. Sunday evening, as everyone was packing to leave, Margaret pulled Jackson aside. "Can I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Margaret. What's wrong?" They went into the study, a cozy room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large oak desk. Margaret closed the door carefully. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but I've worked for this family for 10 years and I care about all of you." "I know you do, Margaret." "What is it?" "Mrs. Mason, she's not herself lately. I've noticed changes over the past few months." "What kind of changes?" "Memory lapses. Confusion. Sometimes she'll ask me to do something and then 10 minutes later deny she asked me at all. And her moods, they swing more dramatically than they used to. One moment she's fine, the next she's angry for no reason." Jackson felt a chill run down his spine. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I think her behavior toward your fiancé might not be entirely about Lauren. I think there might be something medical going on." "You think she's sick?" "I think she should see a doctor. A neurologist." "Jackson, I've seen these signs before with my own mother. She had early onset dementia." Jackson sat down heavily. "Does Evelyn know you're telling me this?" "No. And she'd fire me if she found out. But you needed to know." "Thank you, Margaret. I'll handle it carefully." That night, after Lauren and the other guests had left, Jackson confronted Evelyn. They were in the library, Evelyn reading a book, Jackson pacing. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Evelyn looked up. "I'm always honest with you. Are you feeling okay? Health-wise, I mean." "I'm 78 years old, Jackson. I have arthritis and high blood pressure. But otherwise I'm fine." "Why?" "Margaret mentioned that you've been having some memory issues." Evelyn's face tightened. Margaret should mind her own business. "Is it true?" "I'm getting older. Everyone forgets things as they age." "Evelyn, please. This is serious. Have you seen a doctor?" "I don't need a doctor. I need people to stop patronizing me." She stood, setting her book down with more force than necessary. "Is this your way of explaining away my concerns about Lauren? By suggesting I'm mentally incompetent? That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it?" Poor old Evelyn, losing her marbles, imagining threats that don't exist. "Very convenient for you, Jackson. Stop it. I'm worried about you, that's all." Evelyn's expression softened slightly. "I appreciate your concern. But I assure you, there's nothing wrong with me that wouldn't be fixed by you showing better judgment in your personal life." Jackson knew he wasn't going to get anywhere tonight. "Fine. But will you at least agree to see a doctor? For my peace of mind. If it will make you happy, I'll schedule an appointment. But I won't have you using some imaginary health issue to dismiss my very real concerns about your fiancé." "Fair enough." But as Jackson drove back to Manhattan that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was spiraling out of control. His phone rang. It was Lauren. "Hey," he answered. "How are you?" "Honestly, I'm exhausted. And I'm questioning everything." "Don't. Please don't. Jackson, maybe your friends are right. Maybe we are moving too fast. Do you want to postpone the wedding?" There was a long pause. "I don't know. Part of me wants to prove Evelyn wrong, wants to show her that our love is real. But part of me wonders if fighting this hard is a sign that we're not meant to be." "That's fear talking, Lauren. That's exactly what Evelyn wants, for you to doubt us." Is it? Or is it common sense? They talked for another hour, going in circles, neither of them able to find solid ground. When they finally hung up, Jackson felt more uncertain than ever. Monday morning, true to her word, Evelyn called her attorney. By Wednesday, Jackson received a copy of the proposed prenuptial agreement. It was brutal. In the event of divorce, Lauren would receive no spousal support, no claim to any assets Jackson owned before the marriage, and no claim to any business profits generated during the marriage. She would leave with exactly what she brought into the marriage, nothing. Jackson called Evelyn immediately. This is insulting. It's protective. You asked her to prove her intentions. This is how she does it. By signing away any claim to partnership, to building a life together. Marriage is supposed to be a joint venture, Evelyn. This makes her an employee, not a wife. If she truly loves you, the legal details won't matter. They matter to me. Then don't ask her to sign it. But know that if you proceed without protecting yourself and this marriage fails, you'll lose everything your father and I worked for. It was emotional manipulation and Jackson knew it. But it was also effective. That night, he showed the prenup to Lauren. They were in his apartment, sitting on the couch, the document spread out on the coffee table between them like something toxic. Lauren read through it carefully, her expression unreadable. This is what she thinks of me, Lauren finally said. No. This is what she thinks is necessary to protect the family assets. It's the same thing, Jackson. She's treating me like a threat, like an enemy. I'm not going to make you sign this. Lauren looked at him. What if I want to? Why would you want to? Because I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of defending myself. If signing this piece of paper will finally convince her that I love you for you, then I'll do it. Lauren, this isn't just about proving something to Evelyn. This affects your future, your security. What if something happens to me? What if the marriage doesn't work out? You'd be left with nothing. Then I'd rebuild, like I've always done. Jackson, I don't need your money. I never have. My business is successful. I can take care of myself. This prenup, as awful as it is, doesn't scare me. What scares me is losing you because we couldn't find a way past this. Jackson pulled her close. You're not going to lose me. Then let me sign it. Let me take this weapon away from her. The next day, Lauren signed the prenuptial agreement in front of a notary and 2 witnesses. She didn't hesitate, didn't read it again, just signed her name in clear, confident script. When it was done, she looked at Jackson. Call Evelyn. Tell her it's done. Jackson made the call. Evelyn answered on the second ring. She signed it, Jackson said without preamble. There was silence on the other end. Did you hear me? She signed your prenup. Every cruel, insulting clause. She signed it. I see, Evelyn said quietly. Are you happy now? Do you finally believe that she loves me? Jackson, I never doubted that she has feelings for you. I doubted whether those feelings were stronger than her survival instincts. And now? Now I suppose we'll see. The prenup protects you legally. It doesn't protect your heart. Nothing can protect that, Evelyn. That's what love is. It's vulnerability. It's risk. It's trusting another person with the power to destroy you and believing they won't. That's a very romantic notion. It's the truth. And it's what you and Richard had, before grief took him. You knew that risk. You took it anyway. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. The wedding is in 10 days, she finally said. Will you be there? Jackson asked. Of course. I'm your mother. It was the first time Evelyn had ever called herself his mother rather than his stepmother. Jackson felt emotion tighten his throat. Thank you. But Jackson, understand something. I'm there for you, not for her. My presence doesn't indicate acceptance. It indicates love for you. I'll take it. The final 10 days before the wedding passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. Lauren threw herself into the details, confirming vendors, finalizing seating charts, approving the final menu. She worked 18-hour days, barely sleeping, using activity to avoid thinking about the emotional minefield they were walking through. Jackson split his time between his business and trying to keep the peace. He called Evelyn daily, checking in, trying to maintain connection. She was polite but distant, their conversations superficial. For days before the wedding, Jackson received a call from Evelyn's doctor. "Mr. Mason, I'm calling about your stepmother's recent appointment." "Yes, she mentioned she was seeing you. Is everything all right?" There was a pause. "I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you come to my office?" Jackson felt his stomach drop. "Is it serious?" "Please, Mr. Mason. Come to my office. Tomorrow if possible." Jackson drove to Connecticut the next morning. Dr. Sarah Patel was a neurologist in her 50s, with kind eyes and a direct manner. She ushered Jackson into her office and closed the door. "I've run a series of tests on Mrs. Mason. Cognitive assessments, an MRI, blood work. Mr. Mason, your stepmother has early-stage Alzheimer's disease." The words hit Jackson like a physical blow. "Are you sure?" "As sure as we can be without more invasive testing. The good news, if there is any, is that we've caught it early. With medication and lifestyle changes, we can slow the progression significantly." "Does she know?" "Yes. I told her yesterday. She asked me not to contact you, but I felt it was important that family be informed." "How is she handling it?" "Dar." Patel chose her words carefully. "She's in denial. She's refusing medication and insisting that the symptoms are normal aging. She's also, if I may speak frankly, exhibiting some paranoid ideation. She's convinced that people are trying to take advantage of her, that she can't trust anyone." Jackson thought about Evelyn's behavior toward Lauren, her accusations, her suspicion. It all made horrible sense now. Is this why she's been so hostile toward my fiancé? Alzheimer's can affect personality and judgment, yes. Paranoia is common in the early stages. Patients often become suspicious of new people in their lives, seeing threats that don't exist. "God," Jackson whispered. "She's been fighting a disease, not Lauren. I can't speak to the specifics of family dynamics, Mr. Mason. But I can tell you that your stepmother needs support right now. And she needs to start treatment immediately. What do I do?" "Talk to her. Gently but firmly. She trusts you. If anyone can get through to her, it's you." Jackson drove straight to the estate. He found Evelyn in the garden, pruning rose bushes with Margaret. She looked up as he approached, immediately defensive. "Did Dr. Patel call you?" "Yes. I specifically asked her not to. She was right to tell me." "Evelyn, we need to talk about this." Evelyn set down her pruning shears. "Margaret, give us a moment, please." When Margaret had gone, Evelyn turned to Jackson. "I don't want your pity. I'm not offering pity. I'm offering support. There's a difference." "I'm fine, Jackson. Dr. Patel is overreacting. You have Alzheimer's. That's not overreacting. Early stage. Barely noticeable. And I don't need medication that will turn me into a zombie. The medication will help slow the progression. It will help you stay yourself longer." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to hide it. "Myself. What self is that, Jackson? The woman who's forgetting where she put her keys? The woman who can't remember if she took her morning pills. The woman who accuses innocent girls of being gold diggers because she can't tell reality from paranoia. So she knew. On some level, she knew what she'd been doing to Lauren. "Evelyn," Jackson said gently. "It's not your fault. Isn't it? I've been cruel to that girl. I've accused her of terrible things. And the whole time, it was my own mind betraying me. She'll understand. We'll all understand. Will she? Would you, if someone treated your future wife the way I've treated Lauren?" Jackson sat down on the bench beside the rose bushes. "Come here." Evelyn sat slowly, suddenly looking frail in a way she never had before. "I'm scared, Jackson. I know. I watched my own mother disappear into dementia. By the end, she didn't recognize me. She thought I was a nurse trying to steal from her. Is that what's going to happen to me? Maybe. Eventually. But that's years away, and medical science has advanced significantly. The medications available now didn't exist when your mother was sick. I don't want to become a burden to you. You could never be a burden. You're my mother, Evelyn. In every way that matters." She gripped his hand tightly. "I've made such a mess of things. The wedding is in 4 days, and I've spent months poisoning everyone against your bride. Then we fix it. Together. Starting now." "How?" "You start by taking your medication. Then you start by apologizing to Lauren. And then we all move forward, as a family, dealing with this diagnosis together." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Will she forgive me, do you think?" "I honestly don't know. But we have to try." That evening, Jackson called Lauren. "I need to tell you something about Evelyn. Can you come to the estate tomorrow?" "Jackson, the wedding is in 3 days. I have a million things to do. This is more important. Please, Lauren. Trust me." She agreed reluctantly. The next day, Lauren arrived at the estate around 2 in the afternoon. Jackson met her at the door. "Before we go in, I need to prepare you for what you're about to hear. You're scaring me. Evelyn has early-stage Alzheimer's disease." Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. She was diagnosed a few days ago. Her doctor says the paranoia, the accusations, the hostility toward you, it's all connected to the disease. She hasn't been herself." Tears filled Lauren's eyes. "That poor woman. She wants to apologize to you. Face to face." They found Evelyn in the library, sitting in a wingback chair by the fireplace. She stood when they entered, her hands clasped in front of her. "Lauren," she said. "Thank you for coming. Mrs. Mason, Jackson told me about your diagnosis. I'm so sorry. Please, don't be kind to me yet. Let me say what I need to say first." Evelyn took a deep breath. "I've been unforgivably cruel to you. I've accused you of having mercenary motives. I've questioned your character and your intentions. I've made your engagement to Jackson a nightmare when it should have been a joy. And I did all of this while claiming to protect Jackson, when really I was protecting myself from the fear of losing him and from the paranoia that my disease was feeding me." Lauren was crying now. "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do. You signed that horrible prenuptial agreement to prove something to me, and the truth is, you never should have had to prove anything. Your love for Jackson is evident in everything you do. I was too blinded by fear and illness to see it." "I understand why you were scared," Lauren said. "Jackson told me about Charles Hartford, about what happened to you." Evelyn looked surprised, then nodded. "Yes. That experience poisoned me. And I let that poison infect my relationship with you. That was wrong." She crossed to Lauren and took her hands. I'm asking you to forgive an old, sick woman who let her fears control her. I'm asking you to give me a chance to be the mother-in-law you deserve, not the monster I've been." Lauren pulled Evelyn into a hug. Both women were crying. Jackson felt his own eyes fill with tears. "Of course I forgive you," Lauren whispered. "Of course I do." They stood like that for a long moment, three people bound by love and pain and the difficult work of forgiveness. When they finally separated, Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Now, about that prenuptial agreement. What about it?" Lauren asked. "I want you to tear it up." "What?" "No, Evelyn, I signed it willingly." "You signed it under duress, because I forced you into it." "Jackson, do you have a copy here?" Jackson hesitated. "In the study." "Get it. Please." He returned a moment later with the document. Evelyn took it, walked to the fireplace, and tossed it into the flames. They all watched as the pages curled and blackened and turned to ash. "There," Evelyn said with satisfaction. "Now your marriage will be what it should be, a true partnership, with all the legal protections and rights that entails." "Evelyn, you don't have to do this," Jackson said. "Yes, I do. For all of our sakes." She turned to Lauren. "Will you tell me about the wedding plans? I've been so horrible that you probably didn't think to include me, but I'd very much like to be involved, if you'll let me." Lauren smiled through her tears. "I'd love that." They spent the next 3 hours together, going over every detail, the flowers, the music, the ceremony, the reception. Evelyn offered suggestions, Lauren asked for advice, and slowly, painfully, tentatively, they began to build the foundation of a relationship. As the sun was setting, Patricia called Lauren. "Honey, there's a problem with the caterer. They're saying they don't have our final head count." "I'll handle it," Lauren said, standing. "I need to get back to the city anyway." "Dinner first," Evelyn insisted. "Margaret has prepared a roast. Please, stay." They had dinner together, the three of them, and for the first time, the conversation flowed naturally. Evelyn told stories about Jackson as a teenager, about his determination to succeed, about the time he'd stayed up for 3 days straight studying for a calculus exam and then fell asleep during the actual test. Jackson told stories about building his company, about the early days when he was working out of a coffee shop because he couldn't afford office space. And Lauren told stories about her own journey, about the first event she ever planned, a disaster involving a broken chocolate fountain and 200 angry guests, about the terror and exhilaration of starting her own business. As Jackson listened to the two most important women in his life talking and laughing together, he felt something settle in his chest. Hope. Maybe they would be okay. Maybe forgiveness was possible. Maybe love was strong enough to overcome fear and illness and misunderstanding. The wedding day arrived. It was a perfect October afternoon, the sky cloudless, the temperature mild. They'd chosen to have the ceremony and reception at the estate, in the gardens overlooking the Sound. White chairs were arranged in rows on the lawn, an arch covered in roses marked where Jackson and Lauren would exchange their vows. Patricia arrived early with Lauren's siblings. Derek and Amanda were there, along with 50 of Jackson and Lauren's closest friends and business associates. And Evelyn, dressed in a dove-gray suit, stood near the front, a small smile on her face. Jackson waited at the altar with the officiant, a friend from college who'd gotten ordained specifically to perform the ceremony. His hands were sweating. His heart was racing. And then the music started. Lauren appeared at the edge of the garden, her arm linked through Patricia's. She wore a simple ivory dress, elegant and understated, her auburn hair swept up, a small bouquet of white roses in her hands. She was the most beautiful thing Jackson had ever seen. As she walked toward him, Lauren's eyes found Evelyn. For a moment, their eyes met. Evelyn nodded, a small gesture of acceptance and blessing. Lauren smiled, tears streaming down her face. And then she was there, standing in front of Jackson, taking his hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. The officiant began. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Jackson and Lauren." But Jackson barely heard the words. He was looking at Lauren, at the love and trust in her eyes, at the future they were about to build together. When it came time for the vows, Jackson spoke from his heart. "Lauren, 6 months ago, I didn't believe in love at first sight. I thought it was something from movies, not real life. But then I met you, and everything changed. You showed me what courage looks like, what strength looks like, what real partnership looks like. You fought for us when it would have been easier to walk away. You proved that love isn't about money or status or what someone can give you. It's about seeing someone's soul and choosing them, every day, despite the challenges. I choose you, Lauren. Today, tomorrow, for the rest of my life." Lauren was crying openly now. "Jackson, I grew up believing that I had to fight for everything alone, that asking for help was weakness, that trusting someone else was dangerous. You taught me that vulnerability is strength, that partnership is more powerful than independence, that love doesn't make you weaker, it makes you braver. You stood beside me through the hardest weeks of my life. You never wavered, never doubted us, even when I doubted myself. I choose you, Jackson. In sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, in joy and in sorrow. I choose you." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Jackson pulled Lauren into a kiss as their guests erupted into applause. When they turned to walk back down the aisle, Evelyn was standing, clapping, tears streaming down her face. As they passed, she reached out and squeezed Lauren's hand. "Welcome to the family, daughter," she whispered. The reception was joyous. They danced, they ate, they toasted. Derek gave a speech that had everyone laughing. Patricia gave a speech that had everyone crying. And then, unexpectedly, Evelyn asked for the microphone. "I'd like to say a few words," she said. The crowd quieted. "Many of you know that I've been Jackson's mother since he was 9 years old. I've watched him grow from a grieving, lost little boy into the remarkable man he is today. And I will confess that when he first told me about Lauren, I was skeptical. 4 months seemed too fast. I worried he was making a mistake." She paused, looking directly at Lauren. "I was wrong. Lauren has shown me what true character looks like. She's shown me strength, grace, forgiveness, and most importantly, unconditional love for my son. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I'm sorry I made your journey to this day more difficult than it needed to be. But I'm grateful, so grateful, that you never gave up on Jackson, on us, on this family. Welcome, Lauren. Welcome home." The crowd applauded. Lauren crossed to Evelyn and hugged her tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For raising him. For making him the man I love." "Thank you for loving him," Evelyn replied. "And for forgiving a foolish old woman." As the party continued, Jackson and Lauren found a quiet moment alone on the terrace. "We did it," Lauren said, leaning against him. "We really did it. Happily ever after. Something like that." She kissed him softly. "Though I suspect our ever after will have its challenges." "Evelyn's illness." "Yes. It's only going to get harder from here." "We'll face it together," Jackson said. "All of us. As a family." "As a family," Lauren agreed. They stood there, watching the sun set over the sound, watching their guests dance and celebrate, feeling the weight and the wonder of the commitment they'd just made. Love wasn't simple. It wasn't easy. But it was worth fighting for. It was worth the risk. 3 months later, Jackson, Lauren, and Evelyn sat in Dr. Patel's office for a follow-up appointment. The medication was working. Evelyn's symptoms had stabilized. She was still forgetful sometimes, still occasionally confused, but the paranoia had faded. "You're doing remarkably well," Dr. Patel said. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I have excellent support," Evelyn said, looking at Jackson and Lauren. "Family makes all the difference." On the drive back to the estate, Evelyn dozed in the back seat. Lauren glanced at Jackson. "She's getting worse, isn't she? Even with the medication?" "Slowly, yes. But Dr. Patel says we might have years before it becomes severe." "What do we do when it does?" "We love her," Jackson said simply. "We take care of her. We remember who she is, even when she forgets herself." Lauren reached over and took his hand. "I'm glad I get to do this with you." "Me too." That evening, the three of them had dinner together, as they did most weekends now. Margaret served pot roast, Evelyn's favorite. They talked about mundane things, Jackson's latest business deal, Lauren's company's expansion into Boston, the upcoming holidays. Normal, everyday family conversation. As Jackson watched Evelyn laugh at one of Lauren's stories, he realized something profound. The last 6 months had been the hardest of his life. The conflict, the heartbreak, the diagnosis, the fear. But they'd also been the most important. Because they'd taught him that love wasn't about perfect circumstances or easy choices. It was about fighting through the hard times. It was about forgiveness. It was about standing beside the people you love, even when they're at their worst, because you know they'd do the same for you. His phone buzzed with a text from Derek, "How's married life treating you?" Jackson typed back, "It's complicated. And perfect. And worth every second." And it was true. All of it. 6 months into their marriage, Lauren came home with news. "I'm pregnant." Jackson, who'd been reviewing contracts in his home office, nearly fell out of his chair. "What? Are you serious?" "Completely serious. 8 weeks along." He crossed to her, pulling her into a fierce hug. "This is incredible. Have you told anyone else?" "Not yet. I wanted you to be the first to know." "Well, second. My doctor knows. We need to tell Evelyn." They drove to Connecticut that weekend. Evelyn had been having a good month, alert and engaged. When they told her about the pregnancy, her face lit up with joy. "A great-grandchild." "Oh, Jackson. We were thinking," Lauren said carefully, "if it's a girl, we'd like to name her Caroline. After Jackson's mother." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "She would have loved that. She would have loved you. We were also hoping," Jackson added, "that you'd help us prepare. That you'd be involved. Because this baby is going to need her grandmother." "Grandmother," Evelyn repeated, testing the word. "I like the sound of that." Over the next few months, as Lauren's pregnancy progressed, Evelyn threw herself into preparations. She and Lauren shopped for baby clothes, decorated the nursery, debated names. On Evelyn's bad days, when the confusion set in, Lauren was endlessly patient. She'd gently remind Evelyn where they were, what they were doing, never showing frustration or annoyance. Jackson watched the bond between them deepen and felt grateful beyond measure. His mother and his wife, united by love for him and for the child they were expecting. The baby, as it turned out, was a girl. Caroline Patricia Mason was born on a rainy Tuesday in June, weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She had Lauren's green eyes and Jackson's dark hair. Evelyn was the first person besides Jackson to hold her. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm your grandmother. And I'm going to tell you all about your other grandmother, the one you're named for. She was brave and kind and loving, just like your mother." Lauren, exhausted but glowing, watched from the hospital bed. "Thank you," she mouthed to Jackson. "For what?" "For everything. For fighting for us. For bringing me into this family. For giving me this beautiful life." Jackson kissed her forehead. "Thank you for taking a chance on a guy you barely knew. Thank you for being brave enough to love us, all of us, even when it was hard." As the years passed, Evelyn's condition slowly declined. Some days she was sharp and present. Other days she was lost, confused, living in memories from decades ago. But she never forgot Caroline. Even on her worst days, when she couldn't remember Jackson's name or recognize Lauren's face, she'd see Caroline and smile. "Beautiful baby," she'd murmur. "Whose baby is this?" "Yours," Caroline would say, coached by her parents. "You're my grandma." And Evelyn would smile, content. When Caroline was 4, Evelyn passed away peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was held at the estate, attended by hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Jackson gave the eulogy. "My stepmother, Evelyn Mason, saved my life. She took in a broken child and gave him structure, love, and hope. She wasn't perfect. She made mistakes. She struggled with her own fears and demons. But she taught me the most important lesson of all, that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up, day after day, especially on the hard days. It's about forgiveness and grace and unconditional love." He looked at Lauren, holding Caroline's hand in the front row. "Evelyn gave me the foundation I needed to build my life. And in the end, she gave me her blessing to build that life with the woman I love. I'm grateful for every moment I had with her. I'm grateful for her flaws and her strengths, for her fears and her courage, for everything she was. She was my mother. And I will miss her every day for the rest of my life." As they lowered Evelyn's casket into the ground, Caroline tugged on Jackson's sleeve. "Daddy, where did Grandma go?" "She's in our hearts, sweetheart. She'll always be in our hearts. Promise? Promise." That night, after Caroline was asleep, Jackson and Lauren sat on their balcony, looking out at the city lights. "She would have been so proud of you," Lauren said quietly. "Of us," Jackson corrected. "She told me, about a month before she died, that you were the best thing that ever happened to this family." "She said that?" "She did. She said she was sorry it took her so long to see it, but that she was grateful every day that you'd forgiven her, that you'd given her a chance to be a real grandmother." Lauren leaned against him. "I never told you this, but in those last few months, when she was really struggling, she'd sometimes think I was Caroline. Your mother, I mean." "Really?" "She'd tell me stories about you as a little boy. About how much she loved you, how proud she was of you. And I'd just listen, holding her hand, letting her think I was whoever she needed me to be in that moment." Jackson felt tears on his cheeks. "Thank you. For taking care of her. For loving her. She was family. That's what family does." Years later, when Caroline was grown and planning her own wedding, she asked her parents to tell her the story of how they met. Jackson and Lauren sat in the same library where Evelyn had once accused Lauren of being a gold digger, where so much pain and reconciliation had happened. "It wasn't easy," Jackson began. "We almost didn't make it. But you fought for each other," Caroline said. "We did. And more importantly, we learned to fight together, not against each other." Lauren added, "Your grandmother, Evelyn, taught us that. She taught us that love isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about working through it with grace and honesty. It's about admitting when you're wrong, forgiving when you're hurt, and never, ever giving up on the people you love." "That's beautiful," Caroline said. "Is it true?" Jackson and Lauren looked at each other and smiled. "Every word," they said together. And so the story of Jackson, Lauren, and Evelyn became a family legend, passed down through generations. A story about love and fear, about sickness and health, about the complicated, messy, beautiful reality of family. A story that proved that happily ever after isn't a destination. It's a choice you make, over and over again, to show up for the people you love, especially when it's hard. Because in the end, that's what matters. Not the money or the mansions or the fairy tale proposals. Just the choice to love, to forgive, to stay. That's the real happy ending.